Hey guys, what's up? It's Samantha, and in this video I'm going to be memory keeping the week of June 1st through June 7th. I'm using this gorgeous SPC kit, Relax, and I decided to go with copper foil for this, and I love how the copper foil paired with these warm neutrals. This is not normally the kind of kit that I would use for summer, but it was a perfect lazy stay-at-home week kind of kit, and I absolutely love how the spread came out. It's definitely one of those spreads that by the end, I am just thinking there's no way I could have done this any better. I did keep quite a bit of white space in this, and if you've been following me for a long time, you know historically, I pretty much only write in uppercase letters in my planner, and I decided to write in lowercase letters for some of the lettering in this, and I love how it turned out. So look at me, turning over a new leaf in my planning style. I really like how this turned out, and who would have thought we would have seen this change, growth, development in me as a planner? So it's just, you're probably laughing at me, but for me, it feels like a big deal. As someone who's been very staunchly only uppercase letters for the last few years, it's a big deal. So that's what's new in the planner. I also didn't use any scripts this week because I used copper foil and I didn't want to pull in a secondary foil into this. So I really love how it turned out. Don't think I could have done it better. This is a great spread. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and talk about all of the books that I read this week because that's what I've been doing. I'm going to be honest. I've tried to film this voiceover about 500 times at this point. I can't seem to coherently talk about the books that I'm reading, even though I really enjoyed all of these books. Every time I start trying to talk about them, I feel like a bumbling idiot, which I'm going to go ahead and say is probably because I've been stuck inside my house for almost 4 months at this point, and I have had no social communication with anyone except for talking to my mom on the phone. So, you know, that's how it be. I guess I live with my husband, but I can talk like a moron to him, and we've been together for 8.5 years. So, you know, I don't really know that I have to elevate myself above caveman status when I talk to him. So, right. Yeah. See what I mean? I don't know how to talk to people anymore. This is my life. This is just, my brain is mush. So I'm going to try to talk about these books in a coherent fashion. I don't know if I'm going to be coherent. I liked these books. There is not a single book I read this week that I disliked. Why is it so hard to talk about books I like? I don't know. But gonna give it a go. The first book that I finished this week was my advanced copy of I'll Be the One by Lyla Lee. This is already out because I am super behind on doing voiceovers for my Plan With Me's. This came out on June 16th. I gave this 4 stars. This is a super fun, cute, fluffy YA contemporary romance. It is an Own Voices book for the Korean rep and also just has a lot of great casual normalized LGBTQ plus rep. This is a book about a girl, Sky, who auditions for a K-pop competition TV show, and she's a singer and she's a dancer and she's also a size 16. So this book, while it's like very fun, fluffy, there's a swoon-worthy romance, it also deals with issues of body positivity and a lot of the negative feedback that Sky gets from her mother and also the judges on the K-pop competition show because she isn't like the normal body type of a K-pop star. Sky is infectiously confident and she really aggressively stands up for herself, which is something I so deeply appreciated. And I really like how this kind of handled the perfection that's expected from K-pop stars, how there's only a certain mold for what you're supposed to look like if you want to get into K-pop. And it also, you know, deals with some non-Western body ideals and body image stuff that I haven't really seen handled a lot in YA contemporary. This also has a tense mother-daughter relationship, and I really like how this was handled. I feel like a lot of YA contemporary books, when there is a tense parent relationship, tends to have sort of this magical resolution at the end, and I felt like this was a very realistic way of handling the mother-daughter relationship. Not everything was solved overnight, and I don't really think that's a spoiler because it's not like the main part of this book, but I really appreciated how that relationship was handled in this book. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. If you're a fan of K-pop, if you're looking for a fluffy, light read for the beach or pool, definitely pick this one up. I also read that HBO Max picked this up for a movie, and I think this will be a fantastic rom-com, like teen movie in the vein of To All the Boys I Loved Before, that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited to see that movie down the line. The next book I read was Turncoat by Jim Butcher, and I am as shocked as you guys, or at least I was at this point. I gave a Dresden Files book 5 stars. I really liked this book. Obviously, I've talked about some of the problems that are sort of ever present throughout the Dresden Files series in the past, like the male gaze stuff and the objectification/damselification. It's not a word, but I made it a word. How every woman is an object or a damsel to be rescued in this world. But the way the world has just been blown open and the development of side characters, I really like this series at this point. Did not ever think that I would be giving Dresden Files books 5 stars, but here we are. In Turncoat, the thing that pushed this into 5-star territory for me, and I don't want to spoil what character this is, so I'm sorry for the vague language, but I particularly enjoyed an exploration of a side character who had been pretty one-note for the rest of the series. And it was just very interesting. It kind of reframed how I viewed the character in other books, just gave me more context for behavior and why things were the way they were. And I really liked that Jim Butcher was able to take a character that I think pretty much everyone hated and make this character a more sympathetic or at least understandable person. I just really appreciate what was done here. There's also a ton of politics in this book, especially within the White Council. I really, really enjoyed this quite a bit, and I feel like this is sort of where Dresden Files takes a turn for me into something that's just on a more epic scale there's like so much more going on than the sort of mystery of the week thing that was, the formula for the earlier books. And while I'm talking about Dresden, I'm going to skip ahead to the other Dresden book that I finished this week, and that is Changes, which is book number 12, and I also gave this book 5 stars. This is a very explosive book, and it completely blows up the Dresden formula. We're starting over from scratch in terms of like what you expect from a Dresden Files book, and it really sets the stage for the more epic storytelling and expansive world building that you continue to see in the books after this. And I really, really enjoyed this book quite a bit. It was very, very good, and I think it takes a lot as an author to blow up a formula that's been working for you and just say, like, we're going to take this book series hard left turn, and I really, really enjoyed this a lot. So 5 stars for both of the Dresden Files books. Can't believe, but here we are. So the next book that I read was a YA contemporary, When You Were Everything by Ashley Woodfolk, and I give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I have been trying to be more intentional about picking up books by Black authors that are not just about Black trauma, and especially in YA contemporary, a lot of the YA contemporary that gets talked about a lot by Black authors. Obviously, these are very important stories, and it's important to have those voices out there. You hear a lot about like The Hate You Give and Dear Martin stuff that's about police brutality and racism and very like important hard-hitting topics. And there should also be books out there about Black joy and about characters who are Black just living life and doing normal life things, and readers should be able to pick up books with characters that look like them in fantasies and in romances and in contemporaries and be able to not always have to read about trauma. So I really loved this book. It has awesome rep. The main character, Cleo, is Black, and her ex-BFF, because this book centers around a friendship breakup, is Lyla, and she is Muslim and Bengali. And I really liked what this book did. It doesn't focus on a romance. It focuses on the fallout of these two best friends, their friendship just completely falling apart. And then we sort of get these then and now perspectives. So we open the story knowing that their friendship is over, and then we go back and see all of the things that built up to these like very attached at the hip, that type of friendship, that really intense friendship that you see a lot in middle school and high school, how they aren't friends anymore. So you get to see all the little things that added up to this explosive, like, we can't stand each other thing. And I really appreciated what this book did. It was very transportive for me reading it as an adult. It reminded me of so many moments from my own teenage years. And it's the kind of YA contemporary that I think speaks not just to teenagers, but also reading it as an adult, I appreciated how much, like, how authentic it felt to a teenage experience. I just can't say enough good things about this book. Also, Cleo's dad is a librarian. So, like, what's not to love about that? And it's always nice to have YA contemporary that isn't focused on a romance. I haven't really read too many books where the focus is on a friendship breakup as opposed to like a romantic breakup, or like grief of a parent and how that grief of a friendship, a really important friendship ending, is handled. This is an awesome book. I really recommend, especially if you're looking to pick up more contemporaries by Black authors. This was such a good read, and the more I think about it, like the more I like this book. I really liked it when I was done, but the more I've sat with it, the more I appreciate what it did. And then the final book that I read this week was The Empire of Dreams by Carson. I did have an arc of this, but I ended up putting my arc down about 30% of the way into it because it deals with some pretty heavy subjects, and I was reading it towards the beginning of all of the pandemic stuff, and I just needed something a little lighter, a little more escapist. So I ended up finishing this in my finished copy that I had pre-ordered, and I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I have to say I was a little disappointed. The Girl of Fire and Thorns series is one of my favorites of all time. It's a Spanish-inspired fantasy world with a very like heavy Catholic influence on the religious system of the world, and the religious system and the magic system are very closely intertwined in this series, and I really liked that series so much. It didn't feel like your typical YA fare. It was very mature, very original, and not very, like, it didn't have the tropes in it that you would expect. And this definitely felt more like true YA to me. So it wasn't a bad book. I still gave it a 3.5. I was just a little disappointed. I would say this really isn't a standalone. It was marketed as a standalone, but I think you really need to have read the series to fully appreciate this. So fans of the original trilogy, I'd recommend picking it up just for the nostalgia factor alone. And I do want to say, like, trigger warning for a lot of like child abuse. The story is told in then and now perspectives, and I think that it's good in that you see her experiencing the trauma as a child, and then how she's dealing with PTSD, the main character, how she's dealing with PTSD as an older teen. But I would say that then and now chapter formula, especially at the beginning, really slowed down the pacing and made it harder to get into the book. I really had trouble connecting to the story until we started getting multiple now chapters in a row. And it was pretty generic YA fare. So I would say only pick this up if you've already read and loved Girl of Fire and Thorns. It missed just a little bit of the magic, and I really liked the religious stuff in the first book, and this just wasn't as present here. It's more of a military training story, and you get to see some of your faves again, but it was good. It just wasn't like my favorite thing in the whole wide world. There's some room at the end for maybe this to become, like, for there to be more books about this character, but this was a completely, like, in case, like, beginning, middle, end story, so there's space for her to keep writing if she wanted to, but this is a complete story as well. So that was everything I read this week. And overall, like, a very, very positive week. I would recommend all of these books if any of them sound good. And this is the finished spread. I absolutely love this copper foil. I wish copper foil was a standard foil from Andrea. I just love copper so much. I'd love to have all the scripts in copper too. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will have all of the books I mentioned in the description down below. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and Goodreads if you're not, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye, guys!